stuff in this promotion that doesn't make sense right now and feels like it's the product of a rush job or scrambling or now look, the top of the card stuff, Moxley Danielson and Moxley's new direction, that stuff's been planned out for months, and it's that's a long-term thing that they're executing very well. Okay. Swerve Hangman, the last chapter of their story is over. There's going to be more to come down the line, obviously. That's a long-term direction. That's long-term booking that's being executed very well. The top of the card stuff, generally, they're plotting out in advance. I heard about this MVP, FKA Hurt Business program with Swerve months ago, and they've stuck to the plan, and it's playing out just about to a T as to how I originally heard it laid out. There's some minor changes. The original plan that I heard was that Swerve would be wrestling Bobby Lashley on this pay-per-view. That obviously isn't happening, but Lashley's coming, and they've already started the angle, the storyline with MVP and Swerve. So again, that's something that they've been. Tony Storm and Mariah May, right? That's on pause while Tony Storm is, wrestling abroad, whether it, she's wrestling in Japan, she's supposed to wrestle in Mexico, but I think the hurricane is causing travel issues there, but she'll wrestle there eventually in Arena Mexico. So while she's away, that's on pause. But again, that was a long-term story where they had, point A to point B. And now, Mariah wins the title, and obviously it's going to continue when Tony comes back. That's another example. I think with the top of the card stuff, AEW generally is doing a good job telling stories and executing long-term booking and sticking to plans and all of that. Underneath this promotion is a fucking mess. There's no other way to put it. I mean, it's an utter disaster in terms of storylines that don't make sense, title shots that don't make any sense, rush job angles that you can tell have had a modicum of planning at best. I mean, we could just go through some of them. Private Party getting this tag team title shot against the Bucks. Private Party was coming off of a feud with the not Blackpool Combat Club, where they legitimately didn't have the upper hand in that feud for 10 minutes. They got completely destroyed and owned in that feud, and I praise that, because Private Party and Commander are not pushed entities, and they were perfect for that role in helping to establish the not Blackpool Combat Club as a dangerous top-of-the-card unit that will fuck you up and hurt you. I had no problem with it. They're lower mid-carders. That's how they should be used, right? But they didn't have the upper hand in that feud, nor should they have, by the way. At all. They just got completely destroyed. From the start of the feud, when they got jumped before their match on Dynamite, to the blow-off match, they got thoroughly dominated. And it was great booking. Perfect usage of lower mid-carders, and exactly how you want to push a new act, right? Then they come on TV and decide, based on a match result from 5 years ago, that they're going to challenge the Young Bucks for the tag team titles. Okay? What's the justification? After seeing them get destroyed for weeks in the feud that they just had. Okay? After they've been used as lower mid-carders for years. One guy's always hurt and he's never around. The other guy's been, sometimes he's a comedy act. Sometimes he's a lower mid-card act. He was one of the flunkies in the awful Matt Hardy storyline. This is not an act that has been pushed or treated with any kind of reverence or respect in the booking for years. They had a couple little mid-card feuds here and there. A couple, 50-50 mid-card feuds. So they come out and challenge the Bucks based on a match result from 5 years ago. Now, then they score a win over the Bucks in a six-man tag, and then they win a three-way number one contender match to officially earn the title shot. Here's the problem. They challenged the Bucks and proclaimed themselves the next challengers before they beat the Bucks in the six-man tag, before they won the number one contender match. This whole program has been booked backwards. At best, it's been booked sideways like Memento. Shout out Guy Pearce and Joey Pants. If you knew you were going to push Private Party and give them a tag team title shot against the Bucks at your pay-per-view, why didn't you use someone else to put over the Not Blackpool Combat Club? You have a million other people on the roster that could have been put in that role to get Claudio and Pac and Mox and Shafir to get them over. So they either didn't know it was going to be Private Party Bucks at the pay-per-view, which means this wasn't well planned out at all, which is my point. Nothing underneath in this company is well planned out at all. Or it's just poor booking. Take your pick, and neither one of them are good. If you're going to set a team up for a tag team title shot, they should be pushed on TV beforehand. At worst, you could have had them win the six-man tag, win the number one contender match, and then challenge the Bucks. That's the proper order to do these things. They did it backwards. They had the team proclaim themselves the number one contenders first and challenge the Bucks, and then win the matches, when it should be the other way around. And they should have won a bunch of matches in the run-up to beating the Bucks and winning the three-way match. They shouldn't have gotten their asses handed to them by the Not Blackpool Combat Club. Just awful, awful TNA level stuff. TNA at its worst level stuff. This Bucks Private Party program. You've got 5 hours of TV where Private Party could have been winning matches for the last 2 months to get them ready to beat the Bucks in the six-man tag and then win the three-way match. And then, tie in the win from 5 years ago and everything else after that. Instead, they screwed it all up. And it made them beating the Bucks and winning the number one contender match feel inorganic and predictable. We all knew once they challenged the Bucks the week before that they were going to win the six-man tag and they were going to win the number one contender match when those matches happened. Because they had already tipped off that the match against the Bucks was coming. I mean, just a mess, just a sloppy mess. Then you have this Chris Statlander turn out of nowhere. Chris Statlander with Stoke was one of the most critically acclaimed new acts in the company. Universal praise for the Statlander turn, the Willow feud. She wins the feud, right? She's got a ton of momentum. It's a fresh coat of paint. She's doing great. The act is working. And then, just in a pre-tape backstage interview, she lets the world know that she's no longer managed by Stoke and she's apparently turned babyface. This literally came out of nowhere. There was no foreshadowing. She didn't earn the turn. I talk about that a lot. When you turn, especially when you turn babyface, you've got to earn the turn so that the fans can get behind you. So that the fans, you feel like the fans want to rally around the person. This turn wasn't earned. She just came out on a promo and decided, I'm a babyface again. Which, okay, sometimes when something isn't working, you should just abort mission and leave it in the past. But the act with Stoke and the heel turn was working. What is this? Because they needed a challenger for Mercedes and they couldn't come up with anything else? Again, total lack of long-term planning. And if this was the plan all along for many weeks or many months, the turn was sloppily done. So take your pick. Again, neither are good. Neither are good. It's a mess. Emi Sakura gets a title shot this week against Mercedes on TV. Now, you're all going to sit there and tell me this was an open challenge. Apparently, Tony Khan announced this on TikTok. It's bad enough that Tony Khan and AEW thinks that, the world revolves around Twitter. Okay. Now we're announcing matches and angles, and we're shooting angles on TikTok. Indies shoot angles and announce things on Twitter. Do you know why they do that? Because they don't have 5 hours of TV. That's why. You had, again, 5 hours of TV to present Emi Sakura as a credible challenger, even for an open challenge. And to show how preposterous it is that Emi Sakura got a title shot. The television viewing audience has quite literally never seen this person win a match. Check that. They saw her win a match once. One time. The last time Emi Sakura won a match, period, in AEW was October 25th, 2023, in an 8-woman tag in a dark match before television. The last time Emi Sakura won a singles match in AEW was in April of 2023 on Dark Elevation, an internet show that no longer exists. The last time Emi Sakura won a match on Dynamite was November 6th, 2019. Before any of you knew what COVID-19 was, before the global pandemic, is the last time Emi Sakura won a match on Dynamite. It was so long ago that it was a tag match, and one of her opponents was Shanna. The last time Emi Sakura won a singles match on Dynamite was never. The last time Emi Sakura won a match, period, on Rampage was never. The last time Emi Sakura won a match on Collision was, say it with me, never. Battle of the Belts? Never. Pay-per-view? Never. Emi Sakura has had her hand raised for a television audience one time ever, and it was before the pandemic in a tag team match. Then you announce the match on TikTok, and you wonder why 300,000 people are watching. Takeshita is getting a title shot in a 3-way at the pay-per-view. What's the justification for it? He interfered and ruined an international title match on TV the week before, causing a no contest. For that, he is granted a title shot in a 3-way. Listen, you either have standards or you don't. You either want to do things differently, right? Or you just want to do things like have been done on American television for the last 20, 25 years. They're choosing option B. That's fine. You may not hate any of this stuff. You might not care that Private Party, lower mid-card enhancement guys are all of a sudden getting a title shot after getting their asses handed to them on TV for a month. You might not care that Chris Statlander just flips back and forth like Big Show, ruining an act that was working. You may not care that Emi Sakura has a title match on TV after having won a single match ever on television in front of the viewing audience. You might not care about these things. You don't have to care about these things. Okay? But I think that when you start stacking these things, it leads to why a lot of people are incredibly frustrated with AEW. It wasn't always like this. And no, it wasn't always perfect, because that's what you guys always do when people bring these things up, or when I bring these things up. You point out angles that didn't make sense in 2020 or 2019. And yeah, it was never perfect. But the level of sloppiness and just the level of horse shit that we're seeing underneath, it's not at the top of the card. For the most part, it's not at the top of the card, as I laid out. It's just in great abundance right now. And I do think it turns people off. It's just real messy. And a lot of this stuff comes across like it's rushed. Like these weren't long-term directions. Not like the stuff at the top, which very clearly is planned out and feels like long-term directions. This stuff is just a mess. It's just a mess. I mean, if you know you're going to give Private Party a title shot, have them win some matches for a couple months on your endless hours of television that you have. Or pick somebody else to get the shit beat out of them for a month. It just doesn't make any sense. It's like there's no quality control or something. I don't know. It's very messy. And it's all over the show. That's just a few examples.